Welcome, everyone, to this week's Leadership Lunch Chat. I'm happy to be here with Jen Wilson, and my name is Amy Vetter. So, for those of you that follow us each week, when we get on, we talk about the things that are on our mind, and we love you to comment in as well if there's anything you want us to talk about during this session today. So, what we thought we would talk about today is all the opportunity that there is within the accounting profession. And a lot of times, I know for myself, when I was going through school in accounting, you really only heard tax or audit and didn't really know where all the pivots were and where the opportunities are in this profession. So, we thought we'd spend a little bit time on that today. So, Jennifer, do you want to start?
Sure. I guess I just, we believe that there's all sorts of opportunity inside accounting. And I do think people sometimes think accounting is math or accounting is dull or accounting is just audit or tax or accounting is just public accounting. And so, the most important thing to say, I think, is that there are almost unlimited options and pathways inside this profession that you, as a young professional, can, choose to start in industry in a finance department or in an accounting firm in whatever discipline, whether it's accounting, audit, tax, consulting, some internships and first year hires out of school with accounting degrees come into consulting. And so there's different choices, and picking that first job and not feeling like, because this is my first role, I better pick it right and know for sure I'm going to want to do that one thing. Don't make it super heavy like you're supposed to know. It's okay. And I know many of you have done internships, and so you've had some exposure. If you're graduating, you've been through some internships, and you may have loved what you did, and so that's a great place to start. You may also have said, that's not for me, and that's going to be important to recognize. You don't have to just do it because that's where you interned, um, or that discipline is something you have to pursue because that's what you've learned so far. Because there really are just almost unlimited pathways and options inside this career set, inside this profession.
Yeah, and I think a good place to start, which, for a lot of professionals, and I would say this is in any field, is that we don't always know why we do what we do and what is the value we want to create in the work we do. I mean, this is where we spend the majority of our time each day. And so it is important to do a little work to see what is the value you want to create in the work that you do, whether it be accounting, not accounting, whatever that is. And for me, I really wanted to help small business owners. I always knew that going in. I had that as my long game. I knew when I started out, which dates me in Big Six, which is now Big Four. Uh, but, I started in the traditional path so that I was grounded in how to do accounting and what that looked like for different organizations and get that experience. But I always knew that, like, my long game was that I could help other small business owners so that they didn't have to be blind to their information and not understand what is happening in their business and so forth. And I could be there to answer questions. I didn't know what that would look like or how I would get there, but it was something that was always there in the back of my mind. And I think it's really important with careers you start with that a lot of times when you're in a starting level of a position, you can feel like this is it. This is what I'm doing. I'm not as excited about this as I thought I was going to be. So really spending that time to come up with the value you want to create is really important so that you understand why you're doing what you're doing and that it's eventually going to get you to where you want to go, even if you do not know the path yet. I don't know about you, Jen, if you had done that younger or had that feeling of the value you wanted to create.
I think people, not everybody does, Amy, and the young people that I talk to, the ones that don't know exactly what they're, mission or ministry in life is supposed to be. They don't feel called to a specific end goal. They feel so afraid that they're missing something or that they're going to make a wrong step. And I tell my children all the time that, the careers that I have had, the unique steps in my career and roles that I've played weren't invented when I started out.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't have envisioned them, and I couldn't have wanted to get there. I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and I wanted to do something with technology.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I, like you, will date myself, and I uh, I was exposed to microcomputer technology as it was being invented, and I thought it was just astounding all that it was going to do for everybody. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I did, that it was technology enabled and that I could help people see the value of working smarter and more effectively, and just taking advantage of all this stuff. So today, my mom never understood what I did in leadership, so she would say, well, she uses a computer. And that's about the extent of my technology work today. Not exactly true. I every once in a while get sucked into somebody's technology project or whatever, but and I'm certainly learning technology all the time to figure out how to advise firms and others and how to use it in my own business. But I would have said back then something about technology, never
Mm-hmm.
realizing that it would get me to a certain level or place, and then I'd pivot off that and focus more on, wait a minute, I want to make a difference in strategy and on vision and individual leadership skills and things like that weren't even being talked about back then. So I think it's okay to have enough of an idea of things you want to try to get in there and get going. And because of the demographic reality of our country, I feel that people coming out of school today will have any doorway, every doorway available to them inside and outside of our profession. And that you don't have to feel like you're shackling yourself by choosing your first steps. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that, you don't want to be fickle and not really give everything your all when you get going. But if it doesn't really fit for either, like Amy, your long game,
Mm-hmm.
or like me, your short game, or you don't like the environment, the culture, whatever, it's okay to realize, well, this was a stepping stone,
Mm-hmm.
and now I have to move to the next step.
Yeah. And to your point, I think that would be my second recommendation is to always keep your eyes open to new opportunities or new things coming down the line. So I think, both of us have done a number of pivots in our career that we could have never predicted when we started out. And you're not going to be able to plan all of that out of
Mm.
what that means. Uh, but one of the things that I think helps you is to say yes. So even if you don't know what something is or you don't have the complete experience, but if the opportunity comes in front of you to try something, is to try it. Because when you limit yourself with limiting beliefs about yourself of like, oh, I've never done that before, could I do that, and so forth, you actually limit your potential and opportunity to do things that maybe you never thought of before. So the whole thing about technology, I was in the same boat as Jen. And the thing was, when I got into accounting, and especially when I had my own practice, I was doing all this accounting work, even in internal or technology work and internal audit as well. And I didn't realize how excited I would get by technology because it wasn't something that really existed so much of my life prior to that. And so every new thing, it was just like so exciting of what it could do and what the potential could be. And I wanted to learn it. And there were opportunities as an accountant to go into that field that I never could have imagined because it wasn't even something that existed. And now in the world that we live in, it is so important to go down those paths. And I would say, like, one path that I went down because of technology that I did decide wasn't something for me was blockchain. So, like, you're going to be open to opportunities and say, I really want to learn this. And as I started learning it, I'm like, this isn't as exciting to me as the cloud work and the AI work. And so I want to go back to learning more about that. But I still had to be open to go down the path of learning. And I think that being open and learning constantly gives you these opportunities that you can't imagine when you begin.
I love that. And so in addition to like not overthinking the start and knowing it's not shackles, and being open and saying yes and learning, which sometimes will cause you to want to go further in that, and sometimes cause you to say, like Amy just described. I would also say build the network,
Mm-hmm.
get involved. So, if as a young professional, join the accounting associations. If you're involved in consulting or technology or a specialty, join those associations that are specialized. Um, Many have student memberships. They allow for some sort of pivot off the student membership into full membership. Look for that. Go do it. Um, Volunteer. Get involved in next gen committees. Get involved in special niche committees that are of interest to you, whether they be women's initiatives or DEI or technology or um, auditing or whatever it is that's of interest to you. Um, Go apply for participation in those committees.
Mm-hmm.
You will make friends. You will build a network. That network will, and the experience of being in leadership inside your associations, will expose you to this learning that Amy talked about and all sorts of cool ideas and what's happening. It'll also allow you to make really like lifelong friends who
Yeah.
will share what they're up to, which is super cool because then you can see what else is possible with this degree that you've gotten and with this career path that you've stepped onto, because they'll all be on different paths, and that's fun. I love that always. And then they'll help you. You'll help them. They'll help you. They'll introduce you to people. You'll introduce them to your friends. And there really isn't anything more powerful than that. And I do think sometimes we think, well, I have to learn all this technical stuff right now, and I have to work these hours at the office and or at home, grind out my peak period work, and I'll just do that, extracurricular networking and leadership stuff later. And if you do it earlier, you'll build the network bigger and broader. You'll be able to quickly sort of shut down things you don't want to do in the future, which would be helpful. Many of us, as we're leaving school and starting our careers, aren't yet in full swing with family. That's not always the case with everybody, but once you get in full swing with family, it's almost harder to get engaged and say those yeses for the extracurriculars, like committee participation and things. So do it earlier, and it'll help you narrow yourself, your yeses later.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, when you say, I'll just do this mid-career, you end up having to try a lot of stuff mid-career that you could have already weeded out. So I think get involved, get in leadership, get out there and start building your network.
Yeah, I definitely want to stress that because I think too many times people join associations, whatever it may be, and they're like, well, I'm a member, but I didn't get much out of it. And the way you get the most out of anything is being on a committee, at least at a minimum, to really invest your time in getting to know how you can help. And that's how you build the deeper relationships, not by just showing up to a networking event. And you can't do that with a bunch of places. Like, you've got to choose, go around and choose which you're going to invest your time in. But that's a really important thing, because when you do that, when you start learning what other people do, you also open your eyes to what type of opportunities and positions are out there that you would have never been exposed to because you wouldn't have had those deeper relationships with people outside of your organization. And it's really, really important in your learning. I would say another thing, and I think this was definitely a mistake that I made, was my rush to get to the next step um, all the time. And, now when you're further in your career, you can look back where you're not as rushed
Yes.
and basically say, that it wasn't necessary to be like that. Um, and I think it is important to enjoy the journey and be present for each stage of your career and get the most out of it that you can rather than focusing on the little things. Because there's probably things I missed along the way because I was so focused on what's the next level, what's the next thing, and instead of really just allowing myself to be present in it. And when Jen brings up about having family, like there's even more pressure, which gets you into that position of like churning work and not really paying attention to your surroundings and so forth, where that time when you're thinking about your day, how are you prioritizing time for relationships, whether those be inside your organization or outside? It doesn't mean it adds extra time to your day. It means that you're carving out time to go to lunch with people or go to coffee or have virtual networking meetings, but don't forget how important those relationships are and not get so buried in just the to-do list that you miss the bigger picture.
For sure. And to feel like, to realize that you belong, you're important. Um, People at all levels, in all disciplines, inside your organization and out, almost everybody would be interested in building a relationship with the next gen um, leader in our profession, to
Mm-hmm.
know you, to hear your story, to share ours, to help you in some way. Almost everybody will say yes to that conversation. And sometimes I think it's both a heads down, not being focused on it, Amy. Sometimes I think it's like, what do I have to offer here? I'm so new, I'm so young. I'll just keep my head down and prove myself, and then I'll build those relationships when I have more to offer. That's a mistake, in my opinion, because you are worthy of those conversations. You don't have anything to prove. Just who you are is interesting enough, and you might really get some great mentoring and some wisdom, and be exposed to some things you didn't know, or perspective, some learning, all those things. So I strongly encourage what Amy just said there. And the other piece of it is, inside your business that you've joined, or your firm that you end up joining, I might turn out to really think that, and realize that I do have a love of tax, let's say, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in some of the intricacies of something like international or state and local or something, but I also should be looking beyond that to say, well, what's going on in people development, and what's going on in business development, and what's happening in firm leadership, and where are we in community service, and are there a few places that I should plug into there too, inside the firm, so I could see where my real gift set lies? Am I going to be technical? Am I more relational? Am I more strategic and more of a vision kind of person, where I might be able to manage initiatives or build practices? Am I really good at developing others? Get exposed to different stuff to find your innate gift set. And that way you can always play to those strengths later.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really the time to figure that out when you're, middle aged.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm serious. And in the traditional model of bringing people up, we make the mistake of saying, hey, put your head down and get your technical skills, build that suite out. Really, don't do anything else but that. That's a mistake, because um, half the population, it might not be their love. And if that's what they're supposed to do the first 5 years and nothing but, we might not see them stay with our profession, right? So
Yeah.
don't close your eyes or put blinders on to the other things that are being part of that firm or that business, that finance department. Go out and try, find out what else they're doing to run the
Mhm.
business, run the practice, try things.
Yeah. I think we could keep going on this topic. There's so many good observations along the way in the journey, but hopefully, there's been some actions here that have resonated with you. And feel free to drop us a note. Let us know what resonated, and if there's any other branches of this topic you'd like us to discuss in future leadership lunch chat. So I hope everyone has a great Friday, and thank you, Jen, again for doing this with me each week.
Yes, love it. Take care, everybody.